Good morning, evening, or night, wherever you are, welcome to WHAM today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time. As we wrap up Thursday, 7th August 2025, let's see what stories are unfolding around us. China is navigating a complex economic landscape with both successes and challenges. July saw exports rise by 7.2% year-over-year and imports increase by 4.1%, exceeding expectations. Emerging industries like biomedicine are aiding economic inputs, indicating a potential recovery. However, many Chinese borrowers, particularly young individuals, are struggling with debt despite Beijing's push for consumer lending. Audits have uncovered misuse of government subsidies designed to boost consumption, with millions of yuan claimed improperly. China needs at least 4.5% GDP growth over the next 5 years, ideally around 5%, to achieve its 2035 economic goals. Local-level debt is a potential risk, although some believe debt restructuring may shift concerns to the United States. Advancing technologically, China is aiming for supremacy by 2027, prioritizing brain-computer interfaces. BCI, the Lanyu lunar lander prototype, completed a landing and takeoff test, furthering the crewed moon mission planned before 2030. Pakistan is enhancing technological collaboration with China in space exploration, nuclear technology, AI, and quantum computing. However, a reusability test by a Chinese rocket company, Deep Blue Aerospace, seems to have failed. Geopolitically, China supports the Pacific Ocean of Peace proposal. Bilateral trade with Russia hit a yearly high in July. Concerns exist that US tariffs on imported chips could negatively impact Southeast Asia's chip industry, potentially drawing the region closer to China. TSA reports that Chinese chip makers like SMIC and Hua Semiconductor will be minimally impacted by US tariffs on imported semiconductors. Domestically, protests in a southwestern city erupted over perceived official indifference to a teen bullying case, with police repression and censorship increasing public anger. China's Buddhist regulator pledged stricter oversight after a scandal involving Shaolin Temple's disgraced abbot, Shi Yongxin, who is under investigation for misconduct. Cybersecurity expert Zhou Hongyi stated that Taiwanese cyber hackers are diligent in attacking mainland Chinese targets. Turning to the United States, former President Donald Trump has called for Intel's CEO to resign, citing conflicts of interest related to China ties, causing a 2% drop in Intel's stock price. He also suggested a 25% tariff on China for Russian oil purchases. As mentioned, some experts believe that China's debt restructuring efforts could shift financial concerns toward the United States. Furthermore, analysts have warned that US tariffs on imported chips could negatively impact Southeast Asia's chip industry, potentially driving the region closer to China. Japan is navigating a complex landscape of economic adjustments, demographic shifts, and strategic realignments. Economic growth forecasts have been lowered, influenced by the impact of U.S. tariff policies and a broader darkening of the global outlook. Toyota, for instance, reported a 37% profit drop and has revised its forecast, directly citing Trump's tariffs as a key contributing factor. Despite a trade deal cutting auto levies to 15%, which has not yet been implemented, other auto giants like Honda and Nissan anticipate similar profit hits. On a more positive note, household spending in Japan rose 1.3% in June, with average spending by households with 2 or more members reaching $295,419. $2,000. The Nikkei stock average hit a record high, rising 2%, while the Topix index also reached a fresh record, trading above 3,000 for the first time. SoftBank Group Corp. reported a $421 0.8 billion yen profit in the April-June quarter, rebounding from a loss due to gains in AI stock investments. The government has adopted budget request guidelines for fiscal year 2026, allowing ministries to request 20% more funds for priority policies. A TSMC trade secrets leak has implicated Tokyo Electron, a Japanese supplier of chip-making tools, creating potential fallout for the company. Demographically, Japan's population experienced a record drop of 900,000 nationals in 2024. This decline is fueling gains for an anti-immigration party, reflecting public discontent with the government's handling of the issue. Strategically, Japan has deployed its first 3 F-35B stealth fighter jets to an Air Self-Defense Force (ASDF) base in the south. This move is intended to bolster its defenses, particularly strengthening the protection of its southwestern remote islands, amidst increasing maritime assertiveness from China. In other developments, All Nippon Airways, ANA, is partnering with Joby Aviation to potentially introduce electric air taxis in Japan, starting in 2027, with plans to deploy over 100 five-seater aircraft. Young Japanese sake brewers promoted their products at the Japanese embassy in Beijing in anticipation of a 3-day event designed to promote sake. Heavy rain in southern Japan's Kyushu Island caused floods and landslides, leading weather officials to issue the highest warning levels and prompting residents to seek shelter. Finally, the World Cosplay Summit in Japan will move to a cooler time of year in 2027 after experiencing record heat during this year's event. Turning to the United States, the nation's trade policies are having a demonstrable impact on Japan's economy. Japan lowered its growth forecast for this year due to the impact of Trump's tariff policies and a darkening global economic outlook. Toyota reported a 37% profit drop and has cut its forecast, identifying Trump's tariffs as a significant factor. Japan's chief tariff negotiator reported that the U.S. had made a clerical error in calculating tariffs, resulting in a lower effective rate. Shifting focus to China, its growing maritime assertiveness is a key factor driving Japan's strategic decision. Japan is deploying F-35B stealth fighter jets in response to this assertiveness, aiming to strengthen the defense of its southwestern remote islands. Furthermore, young Japanese sake brewers promoted their products at the Japanese embassy in Beijing, ahead of a 3-day event to promote sake. Meanwhile, in Mexico, Japan, From Myth to Manga exhibition has opened at the France Mayer Museum in Mexico City. Finally, in Germany, Eintracht Frankfurt has confirmed the signing of Japanese winger Ritsu Don from Freiburg until 2030 for a reported fee of 20 million euros. Venezuela faces renewed pressure from the United States, which has doubled the reward for the arrest of President Nicolas Maduro to $50. Maduro was indicted in 2020 on charges of narcoterrorism and conspiracy to import cocaine. Attorney General Pam Bondi emphasized that Maduro will be held accountable, accusing him of being a major narco-trafficker. Turning to the United States, President Donald Trump has indicated his willingness to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin, diverging from previous reports that a Putin-Zelensky meeting was required first. Simultaneously, Democrats have criticized Senator John Cornyn's assertions that the FBI would help locate Texas Democratic lawmakers who left the state to block a Republican redistricting effort, though the FBI has not commented, and an official stated there were no plans to use federal agents. In other news, Energy Secretary Chris Wright is under fire from scientists for his plan to update national climate assessment reports from prior administrations, initiating a review of these reports. Israel's Security Cabinet has sanctioned a military plan to seize Gaza City, a long-held ambition of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who envisions transferring governance to allied Arab states post-takeover. Opposition leader Yair Lapid has condemned the plan, arguing it serves Hamas's interests. The impending military action may result in the displacement of many Palestinians. The families of hostages have voiced their opposition through protests. Tragically, the Palestine Football Association announced the death of Suleiman al-Obeid, the Palestinian Pelé, who was killed in an Israeli strike in southern Gaza while awaiting humanitarian assistance. Adding to the concerns, Médecins Sans Frontières, MSF, is advocating for the shutdown of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, GAF, asserting that its food distribution points have become scenes of orchestrated killing and a womanization. Germany is intensifying its efforts to manage migration by prolonging border control. Interior Minister Dobrindt has outlined a strategy to deport asylum seekers with criminal histories back to Afghanistan, which is currently under Taliban rule, and to Syria, a nation still recovering from war. Simultaneously, Germany is accelerating the development of geothermal energy projects to broaden its energy sources. The surge in interest in geothermal energy stems from the energy price hikes following Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine, prompting municipal utilities and energy firms to seek innovative, low-carbon heating alternatives. Transitioning to Sweden, Northvolt, a Swedish battery manufacturer that recently declared bankruptcy, will have its German and Swedish factories acquired by Leighton, a startup based in California. India's administration in Jammu and Kashmir, led by Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha, has prohibited 25 books, including writings by Arundhati Roy, claiming they encourage false narratives and secessionism. Regarding international commerce, India is evaluating adjustments to its global partnerships after the initial 25% tariffs on Indian goods were imposed by former U.S. President Donald Trump. Switching gears to Canada, a suspect has been charged with murder in the death of Harsimrat Randhawa, an Indian student killed by a stray bullet near a bus stop in April. In the United States, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has accused the Trump administration of attempting to weaponize law enforcement to target political adversaries. This accusation follows a U.S. senator's claim that the FBI agreed to help locate Texas Democratic lawmakers who left the state to prevent Republicans from passing a gerrymandered congressional map. The proposed map was projected to potentially add 5 more Republican seats before the next midterm elections. Myanmar's military junta is using advanced European anti-jamming technology, obtained via a Chinese firm, to protect its drone operations in aerial campaigns. This has intensified calls for tougher sanctions against the regime. Satellite images show a rise in rare earth mining in Myanmar's rebel-held areas, especially near China and Thailand. Myint Sui, the acting president of Myanmar installed by the military after the coup, passed away at 74. He endorsed measures expanding military power. Post-coup, seeking to improve its global image, Myanmar's military junta has hired Washington lobbyists to mend ties with the United States. This move could signal a shift in U.S. policy, given existing sanctions against military leaders and the ongoing violence, notably against the Rohingya. Australia is witnessing widespread pro-Palestine rallies, including an upcoming event in Brisbane demonstrating solidarity with Gaza. During Matt Wright's trial concerning a deadly helicopter crash, Bush pilot Michael Burbidge admitted to discarding Chris Willow Wilson's phone, citing a desire to shield Wilson's wife from its contents, and could not recall unscrewing the console. In the healthcare sector, the death of a 6-year-old girl from influenza after being discharged twice from Sydney Children's Hospital is under scrutiny, with the New South Wales Health Minister promising answers to the parents. Regarding housing, Shadow Minister Andrew Bragg warned against blaming migrants for housing shortages, fearing it would harm Peter Dutton's electoral prospect. Meanwhile, Dr. Abdul Karim Al-Harasin, a pediatrician from Gaza, is fundraising to study at Sydney University, aiming to contribute to rebuilding Gaza's health infrastructure. Ukraine. While Russian clubs received millions in UEFA solidarity funds despite their ban, Ukrainian clubs in active war zones were excluded from such funding. President Volodymyr Zelensky has not yet met with Vladimir Putin, but negotiations are ongoing to find suitable meeting conditions. WHAM. Ukraine continues to seek international support and assistance amidst ongoing conflict. The country has been actively seeking financial aid and military support from various nations to bolster its defense capabilities. India. Looking ahead, India is preparing to host President Vladimir Putin for summit meetings. National Security Advisor Ajit Doval highlighted the significance of the visit, which will focus on key milestones in the India-Russia relationship. Discussions are expected to cover trade, defense, and energy cooperation. The two countries are also likely to address regional security issues. United Arab Emirates. The United Arab Emirates could potentially host a meeting between President Vladimir Putin and former U.S. President Donald Trump. This proposed summit would be their first since June 2021, signaling a possible shift in diplomatic engagement. Details regarding the timing and agenda of the potential meeting remain under discussion. The UAE has previously served as a neutral ground for international negotiations. Thailand and Cambodia have agreed to a fragile ceasefire, brokered by Malaysia on July 28, to end 5 days of deadly border clashes over a Hindu temple, resulting in at least 43 deaths. Despite a deadlock over captured soldiers, both nations will deploy ceasefire monitors and have agreed to establish interim observer teams to oversee the truce. Further solidifying peace efforts, defense officials from both countries signed a joint statement agreeing to continue a freeze on border troop movements and patrols. Turning to Thailand, state prosecutors have formally indicted 23 individuals and companies in connection with the collapse of a Bangkok office building following an earthquake, which led to the deaths of at least 92 people. Canada is battling severe wildfires, especially in the eastern regions, causing mass evacuations and hazardous smoke conditions extending into the United States. The Canadian Armed Forces and Coast Guard are actively involved in firefighting efforts. Additionally, Canada is facing growing concerns over gang violence, with allegations surfacing about the involvement of India's Bishnoi gang in murders within the country. Canadian authorities are contemplating classifying the gang as a terrorist entity, citing suspected operations on behalf of figures in India. The Caps Cafe, owned by Kapil Sharma, has been targeted by gunfire again, only a month after the first incident, with a social media post purportedly from gangster Goldie Dillon claiming responsibility. Malaysia is currently facing increased anxiety regarding property crime after a police officer was killed, intentionally struck by a vehicle fleeing a robbery scene, prompting a murder investigation. Adding to security concerns, an Indian citizen was arrested at Kuala Lumpur International Airport while attempting to smuggle more than 2,500 live turtles. In a separate legal matter, the investigation into the death of 13-year-old Sarah Karina Mahathir, found unconscious outside her Islamic school, has been reopened, with the Attorney General ordering an inquest into the suspected fall from the school's third floor, as lawyers push for a full post-mortem examination. On the geopolitical stage, Malaysia's King Sultan Ibrahim Iskandar conveyed his admiration for President Vladimir Putin's leadership during a state visit to Russia, indicating a potential deepening of ties even as the U.S. considers further sanctions against Moscow. South Korean authorities are pursuing the arrest of Kim Keon-hee, the wife of the jailed former President Yoon Suk-yeol, over bribery and stock manipulation allegations. Her husband, Yoon Suk-yeol, is currently detained and claims political persecution. In related developments, South Korea and the United States will conduct joint military exercises this month. Shifting to social commentary, a debate has sparked online regarding soccer star Son Heung-min's action of holding an umbrella for a female reporter, exposing gender divide issues in South Korea. France grappled with environmental regulations and agricultural concerns as its Constitutional Council struck down a key element of the Duplon Law, hindering the reintroduction of the pesticide acetamiprid. The Council's decision, rooted in the Environmental Charter, highlighted the dangers acetamiprid poses to pollinators, and noted the widespread objections to its revival. Adding to the nation's woes, France confronted its most extensive wildfire in recent memory, with flames consuming over 60 square miles in the southern regions, and tragically claiming one life. Turning to the United States, higher import taxes initiated by President Trump came into effect, creating ripples across international trade relationships. United Kingdom. The UK government is set to offer households near new electricity pylons a £2,500 sterling discount on energy bills spread over 10 years. This aims to lessen resistance to clean energy projects. The UK's homelessness minister resigned amid claims she evicted tenants and raised rent, a blow for the Labour government. Opinion. Polls show Nigel Farage's Reform UK party ahead. A false story about Russian forces capturing British officers in Ukraine spread online, even amplified by ex-lawmakers. Ukraine, Russia. May Nasenat. Former President Trump is hopeful he can broker a meeting between Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to end the conflict. He admitted previous attempts to do so have failed. Hoping to de-escalate tensions, the United States is preparing for a meeting between President Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin to address the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. In Europe, the Association of Hotels, Restaurants and Cafes in Europe, HOTREC, representing over 10,000 hotels, is initiating a class action lawsuit against Booking.com. The hotels allege that Booking.com's best price clauses have created an unfair market. Meanwhile, the United States is set to incinerate $9.70 million in birth control products currently stored in Belgium. This decision follows the termination of USAID programs, with reports suggesting the destruction process may be underway. Indonesia is poised to offer humanitarian aid by transforming a medical facility on Galang Island into a temporary treatment center for around 2,000 injured Gazan residents, with the intention of facilitating their return home. Amidst these international efforts, domestic tensions are rising as calls to address religious intolerance grow, stronger after attacks targeting Christian groups, including a particularly violent assault on a Christian prayer house in West Sumatra. These events have ignited concerns about potential systemic discrimination and the protection of religious freedom within the country. Further reflecting societal sentiment, Indonesian artists and students are adopting the one-piece manga pirate sign as a symbol of protest, with figures like Kima's Muhammad Firdaus using artwork such as a skull in a straw hat against a black backdrop to voice their discontent. South Africa is bracing for potentially difficult tariff negotiations with the United States, largely due to President Trump's opposition to the country's equity laws. The fear is that the U.S. could leverage the talks to demand a reversal of policies aimed at redressing the historical injustices of apartheid. Adding to the nation's challenges, South Africa is also grappling with an increase in poaching incidents, posing a significant threat to its rhino populations, despite some gains in black rhino conservation. Sudan experienced a recent airstrike on an airport in Darfur, a region controlled by a paramilitary group, leading to the deaths of 40 individuals believed to be mercenaries. Adding to the nation's woes, the World Health Organization who has documented almost 100,000 cholera cases in Sudan since July of the previous year, highlighting the growing concerns about hunger and widespread displacement affecting the population. Philippines' Senate has shelved the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte, a political rival of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. The Senate archived the impeachment case, returning it to the High Court for a ruling on its constitutionality. Concurrent with this domestic political development, Beijing issued a warning to Manila following President Marcos Jr.'s comments regarding a potential conflict in the Taiwan Strait. Cambodia has seen Donald Trump nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize by Prime Minister Hun Sen, adding to a growing list of endorsements from other nations. Cambodia has also agreed with Thailand to deploy ASEAN ceasefire monitors along their shared border. Despite ongoing tensions, both nations have extended their truce. However, Thailand is still holding 18 Cambodian soldiers who were captured shortly after the initial ceasefire was established. Pakistan has also nominated Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize, joining Cambodia in recognizing Trump's international efforts. Israel has also joined the list of nations nominating Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize, further highlighting the global attention on his diplomatic endeavors. The Kremlin has confirmed that a meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin will take place soon. Shifting focus to Bhutan. Deported Bhutanese men from the United States are now stranded in refugee camps in Nepal. Nepal is unwilling to accept these men, leaving them in a precarious situation without a permanent home. Continuing with trade matters, the United States is considering imposing tariffs as high as 100% on imported chips. This action raises concerns about the intricate global supply chains that underpin the production and distribution of these essential components. The United States is currently facing scrutiny as President Trump's tariffs continue to sow uncertainty in the global economy. Italy, among other nations, is feeling the ripple effects of these trade policies. Moving to Italy itself, the country received looted antiquities repatriated by New York investigators. Spain and Hungary were also recipients of the returned artifacts. 16 of these items were seized from New York's Metropolitan Museum of Art. This repatriation highlights international cooperation in recovering and returning cultural heritage. Pakistan's counter-terrorism initiatives and commitment to regional stability have been commended by a U.S. general, potentially setting the stage for Pakistan Army Chief General Munir's second visit to the United States. Simultaneously, in northwest Pakistan, a roadside bomb detonated near a police vehicle in a former Taliban stronghold, resulting in the deaths of 2 officers and injuries to 14 others, underscoring the nation's persistent security concerns. Spain has now claimed the top spot in FIFA's women's rankings after their recent World Cup win, overtaking the United States. Meanwhile, within Spain, a controversy is brewing over a city's decision to ban religious events, sparking heated debate. Government officials are calling the ban racist, while the far-right Vox Party commends the decision, viewing it as a step against Islamic celebrations, amid escalating protests concerning migrants. Understood. I'm ready when you are. Please provide the news articles. India finds itself navigating strained relations with the United States following recent tariff impositions. President Modi is slated to meet with President Xi, adding another layer of complexity to the situation. Further solidifying its stance, India's President Modi spoke with Brazil's President Lula, underscoring a united front against the U.S. tariffs. Brazil, similarly impacted by the U.S. tariffs, has strengthened its alliance with India. President Lula's conversation with President Modi highlighted their mutual concerns. Both nations are seeking alternative trade strategies to mitigate the economic effects of the tariffs. Brazil's response also includes exploring potential disputes through International Trade Organization. Bolivia is seeing cryptocurrencies surge in popularity as citizens seek refuge from a 25% inflation rate. Businesses, from small cafes to large corporations, are increasingly accepting cryptocurrencies as a payment alternative. In Kenya, tragedy struck when an air ambulance crashed in a residential area near Nairobi. The crash claimed the lives of at least 6 individuals, while 2 others sustained injuries. The aircraft was en route from Nairobi to Somaliland. Mexico and the Dominican Republic are joining forces to combat the increasing problem of sargassum seaweed. The 2 nations will collaborate on strategies to mitigate the seaweed's proliferation, which is exacerbated by nutrient pollution, rising ocean temperatures, and shifting ocean currents. Papua New Guinea's cricket PN Shane has revealed its Barramundi squad for the 2025 Jersey Cricket World Cup Challenge League. The team is set to compete against Denmark, Kuwait, Kenya, Qatar, and the host nation, Jersey. The Solomon Islands, guided by Prime Minister Jeremiah Manele, has limited attendance at the forthcoming Pacific Islands Forum Leaders Meeting in Honiara to 21 donor countries. Notably absent from the list are the United States, China, and Taiwan. Switzerland now faces a 39% tariff imposed by the United States on its import. Analysts speculate that this action may stem from Switzerland's prominent role in gold refining, potentially leading to distortions in trade data. Turn saw a Singaporean tourist apprehended in Pattaya for breaching the country's ban on drone usage. The tourist could not produce the necessary permit for operating the drone. The ban is reportedly connected to ongoing tensions along the Thai-Cambodian border. Regarding Tonga and New Zealand, a former Tonga rugby captain is advocating for stricter enforcement of contract regulations. This is to ensure that Pasifika players based in New Zealand are able to represent their home countries in international competition. Bougainville is gearing up for elections to choose a new government, 6 years after a referendum showed strong support for independence. Austria has introduced a new climate tax plan, employing a system of taxes and rebates. The goal is to encourage citizens to embrace more environmentally conscious behaviors, especially lessening their dependence on personal vehicles. In Fiji, Christopher Pride, the nation's top prosecutor, now based in New Zealand, faces corruption allegations which he claims are politically driven. Yemen is experiencing heightened migration due to high unemployment and conflicts in neighboring countries. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.